G'day guys and gal. For all Horus's strengths, charisma and girth, he was a pretty terrible Warmaster if you really take a step back and look at the situation. He was tasked with wrapping up the Great Crusade and ushering mankind into a golden age of domination. Instead, he took a steaming shit on the galaxy, got nearly half of his brothers turned into demons, got himself killed, and literally created the future that he was desperate to avoid. All in all, a job not well done. So that begs the question, who should have been Warmaster instead? Which Primarch would have done the best job? I'm not going to say better job, as Conrad Curse being Warmaster would have actually done less damage to the galaxy, but let's really focus on who would have been the best. It's also a bit of a twofold question, as I'll be answering it from the perspective of fulfilling the Great Crusade, but also as a question of actually winning the heresy. Before we get started, there are only 24 hours left before the Keigitora Cyber Dynasty is gone for good. Cyber Samurai, Cyber Ashigaru, War Mech, Drone Warriors, drones, and even a fucking skimmer. All modular, all scaled perfectly for tabletop and printed in 8K. The quality is fucking obscene. This is also the best value you will get from the Major Mini range, with some of the value bundles putting each model at less than $10 each. Pretty nuts when you realize that also includes bundles that have the War Mech and Cyber Skimmer in them. I want to say a massive thank you for the support on this one. It's taken a lot of work to get this to you guys and gives us the confidence to push for more grand and ambitious mini launches. I have some pretty insane stuff on the horizon that I'm very excited to reveal, but for now, 24 hours left for the Cyber Boys. They won't be returning. Link is below. Today we'll go over who should have been Warmaster instead of Horus, looking at their ability to wrap up the Great Crusade effectively, but also who had the best chance of actually winning the heresy. Let's get into it. It's strongly believed that whoever the Emperor would have chosen as Warmaster would have fallen to chaos in some way, so he chose Horus in order to try and net the best result for the Imperium. Horus was incredibly flawed, way more than many of his brothers. He was insecure, jealous, and arrogant, all traits of someone super beatable. By the time the heresy was ending, he was so useless that chaos basically just puppeted him, using him as a meat suit. The reality was that the hard part of the Great Crusade was already finished, and pretty much any Primarch could have been chosen as Warmaster and finished it off. Even fucking Angron. The Rungdung were dead, the Eldar were avoiding the Imperium, the Orcs had been crushed at Ulanor, and the Necrons and Tyranids were still 10,000 years from saying g'day. However, to indulge the point of the video, let's discuss which Primarch would have been the best Warmaster to finish off the Crusade. The best is someone who is decisive, who knows his brothers, and can coordinate their strengths. They would also need to understand the petty conflicts between each Primarch to keep them together, as many cracks had formed. The best choices would have been Sanguinius, the Lion, or Guilliman. Sanguinius, since everyone actually really liked him and would have followed his direction without question. Guilliman for his raw tactical genius and logistical skills, meaning he would have been the most efficient Warmaster by far, and the Lion since he was the greatest warlord of them all, achieving the most amount of compliances in the Great Crusade and was also very secure in himself. He was also universally respected by his brothers. To really pick who would have been the greatest though, we need to go to the dark side and look at who would have managed to kill the Emperor and achieved a victory for Chaos. In this circumstance, Horus remains loyal if the hypothetical new Warmaster was originally a loyalist. But I am getting a little bit ahead of myself. After all, the one who could have achieved a total victory for Chaos may not have been one of these three loyalists. Fulgrim would have made a shocking Warmaster. The Slaneshi corruption meant all he wanted to do was rail lines and fuck nines. He had to literally get captured by his allies and was still useless during the heresy. Perturabo had the brain and tactics for it, but he didn't command the respect needed to keep a bunch of degenerate traitors together. He hated Chaos and barely used it as a weapon during the heresy, so he would not have been able to leverage its power. He also had his own petty vendettas that almost cost him his legion during the heresy. Lorgar was just straight up too weak. He tried to supplant Horus's Warmaster when he saw how useless Horus was getting, and in return he got the shit kicked out of him and was literally booted from the heresy. No one really respected him either. Conrad, just no. For obvious reasons. Mortarion might actually have not have been too bad. His legion was strong, his tactics were sound, but he did lack the gravitas and leadership that would have made his brothers respect him. You gotta remember that most of the traitors went batshit insane and had to get dragged kicking and screaming to terror. This was with Horus's Warmaster, a highly respected and charismatic leader, so someone like Mortarion would have had no hope in keeping them cohesive. Magnus has a similar issue. He would have been more interested in studying the warp and casting spells than actually leading the war effort. On top of that, he really just wouldn't have commanded enough respect. Angron as Warmaster would be fucking hilarious, but not very effective. The heresy would have just literally been one big fuck off battle. Angron and the traitors versus all the loyalists in one big go. Kinda wanna see that now. Alfarius wasn't even actually a genuine traitor, and the leader of a rebellion can't be a double agent super spy if he wants it all to go well. So in all honesty, Horus was probably the best choice for Warmaster out of all the traitors. But when the loyalists are involved, it's a different story. After all, Horus wasn't even Chaos's first pick for Warmaster. Vulcan could have gone okay. He was liked by most of his brothers, but wasn't particularly looked up to, or was an overly impressive commander. I can't say he had any fatal flaws that disqualify him, but overall he would have been a pretty mid choice. Corvus was way too specialized into stealth operations. He also wasn't particularly charismatic or inspiring. He would have been too focused on singular missions and objectives rather than the bigger picture. The Khan was way too focused on the here and now, the hunt and joy of the moment. He rarely considered the wider galaxy, the future and the past. All that was important to him was what he was currently doing. A fun way to live, but a bad attitude for winning a galactic civil war. Ferrus was way too headstrong and aggressive. He would have jumped the gun and gone straight for terror too quickly, leaving himself open to get flanked, ambushed and trapped. Exactly how he died in canon lore. You could argue Lehman was in a similar boat, however the Wolf King was actually a lot more tactical than he appeared. A lot of his brash and savage persona was to throw people off and hide his fierce intelligence and wisdom beneath it all. I think he would do a surprisingly good job of it, but probably not good enough to be considered a superior replacement for Horus. Rogel could have been a solid pick, his willpower second to none while possessing the tactical might and leadership needed. Boy also had a pretty mighty temper, but I feel like there are better options. Surprisingly, Guilliman actually wouldn't have made a great Warmaster of Chaos, purely because he was too ordered and logical. He wouldn't have accounted well enough for all the warp fuckery and chaotic nature of Chaos. Chaos is primal and instinctual. It is best wielded by those who go with the flow and use it with emotion. Guilliman attempting to bend it into shape and apply logic to it would have ended badly. On top of that, Guilliman was actually looked down upon and hated by many of his brothers, especially the traitor ones, so he probably wouldn't have been able to keep them together. Sanguinius was actually Chaos's first pick of being Warmaster. They desperately wanted the Angel on their side, and he probably would have been nearly unbeatable in combat, as well as inspiring absolute loyalty with his traitor brothers. Even Conrad and Angron would have followed him, and maybe Fulgrim wouldn't have been so useless under Sanguinius's banner. But we gotta remember that Sanguinius is kind of mid in many other ways. He is far from the most tactical Primarch, nor is he a military genius. His tactics were either flex my wings until the enemy surrenders, or dive bomb on their command structure while my legion tears them limb from limb. Not super applicable to a galaxy-wide conflict involving super geniuses. Sanguinius was also very insecure, maybe even more so than Horus. Thus he likely would have second-guessed himself and hesitated. I think he would have overall been a better choice than Horus, especially if he kept Perturabo close as his top tactician, but overall the greatest Warmaster of Chaos would have easily been the Lion. This man ticks every box. His military genius is second to one. I mean, it's literally stated in the lore that he was the best Primarch in terms of compliances, even better than Horus, and that is including the fact that he bore the brunt of the Rungdung Xenocides. He was also universally respected, even by Primarchs that didn't like him. He inspired awe in all that saw him, including his brothers. The First Legion was also incredibly versatile. After all, they were the template that the other legions were created from. Their various wings covered various disciplines of war, so that would have been perfect for his Warmaster status. The biggest thing though is that he wasn't insecure at all. He was incredibly sure of himself and his abilities. He wouldn't second guess himself and create openings for the loyalists to exploit. Many Primarchs, including the Lion himself, thought he should have been Warmaster instead of Horus. Which does tie back into the lore that the Emperor believed that whoever he chose as Warmaster would fall. This lore is debated a bit, as anything the Emperor says is open to fucking interpretation. However, Dan Abnett himself confirmed that the Warmaster was always doomed to fall. So with the Emperor valuing the Lion so highly, there's a good chance that he deliberately avoided choosing him to ensure he would remain loyal and safe from corruption. Funnily enough, Dan also spoke a bit about hypothetical heresies based on other Warmaster choices, Angron being the bloody failure and Alfarius being the bloodless coup. However, as this is all extremely hypothetical and unofficial, even if it did come from Dan Abnett himself, you can't treat it as 100% fact. In saying that, I am confident that the Emperor knew a heresy or schism was on the horizon, and that his choice of Horus being Warmaster was the best chance mankind had for survival. Obviously, things didn't go quite according to plan, but hey, mankind is still kicking, and with the recent return of Guilliman and the Lion, things are actually looking pretty good. If the Lion was to be Warmaster, not only would he have been hyper effective in wrapping up the Great Crusade, but he most likely also would have won the Lionel heresy, dooming mankind to eternal darkness darkness and extinction as the galaxy was consumed in fire and chaos. Even if he was beaten, that would mean we don't have the Lion in the current setting, smashing Angron's brains out with his magic shield. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then pick up the Cyber Dynasty models. Only 24 hours left, guys and gal, you do not want to miss this one. Hit the subscribe button and hit the real subscribe button for more War Mastery content. Join the Discord for more memes and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.